Hey listeners, welcome to a new episode of Podcast Demastered. I'm your host, Ethan Meyer, and I'm joined, as always, by my two very good friends, Wade and Chelsea. And guys, how are we doing this evening? You guys doing good?
Yeah, it's Sunday. It could be like Saturday again. That would be fine. I need some more. Need some more downtime.
It's more weekend time.
We've had Saturday, yes, but what about second Saturday?
What about second Saturday?
Yes, make that a thing.
I actually had a pretty good...
go ahead.
I was just going to say I had a good Sunday, because my team won in the playoffs, so football talk.
Yeah,
Yes.
I heard a lot of Facebook chatter about, I don't even know, Tom Brady or something.
Yeah. We don't have to go too deep into it. We'll save that for the summer football podcast that we'll be starting.
Did you make
only
some new
with
friends
Ethan?
or what?
Yeah. It's just gonna be 2 hours of me talking. New episodes every day. So
Oh God.
be on the lookout for that.
Oh my God.
So. But anyways, we got a new episode today. Hope you guys are excited for it. I've realized, we've all known each other fairly long time through different outlets, and the three of us, we are pretty different in a lot of ways, but we do have one thing in common, and that is that we all love Dragon Ball.
Wrong.
All of
No.
them.
No, Chelsea,
Yes,
you don't realize this. The whole point of this podcast is to get you to love Dragon Ball. That's like the second agenda.
We have a long way to go.
Yeah,
then.
yeah. Hey, it's fine.
It's okay.
It's fine. We're only episode is what 34. We're good.
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built in a day. So, but no, the thing that we all have in common is that we all know how to read. So. And this is to some,
Low standards.
Yeah, exactly. So today's episode is all about dim books. Dim books we be reading. So.
Excellent.
Yes.
We all have different levels of reading ability. But
If that wasn't obvious.
if it wasn't, but from grade school level all the way up to,
7th grade.
Yeah, exactly. Chelsea's already done. She's already done with it. She's like, can we just do a Dragon Ball episode instead?
Nope.
It's never too late.
Reading is wonderful for all ages. Yes. There's so many books out there.
There's
so
Dragon
many to
Ball
love.
manga.
Yeah, there's Dragon Ball manga. So our first topic.
And much more than Dragon Ball.
First topic.
It's not Dragon Ball.
What is your favorite Dragon Ball manga?
None of them. Take this away from the podcast.
Fine.
No, we're actually going to have a fairly breezy episode today. We are going to be talking books. We're going to be talking about, the stuff that we like to read, some of our favorites, anything that we're reading right now, stuff that would make good adaptations, or even stuff that we thought was a good adaptation, just kind of an all-encompassing kind of dive into the world of books. So kind of just diving right in here. No one in particular, but who, what do you guys like to read? Do you guys like fiction? Do you like nonfiction? If you like fiction, like what kind of genres do you like? Feel free to, whoever wants to just jump in there.
Fiction. 100% fiction.
You guys are both you guys are both fiction?
I'm like 99% fiction. There was a time, like right outside of college, where I bought a bunch of like Japanese culture books.
Yeah.
That ranged from just like traveling, like to history to just like collections of like essays.
Yeah.
Based off of experiences living in Japan from a teacher point of view, or this or this or this.
Right.
But I mean, that was like 1%. The other 99 is it's fiction. Yeah.
Wade, have you ever read any nonfiction that is catered towards your your career, like any sort of like nonfiction, like music, like outside of school, I guess, like.
Oh, outside of school?
Yeah, like stuff that you actually wanted to read on your own time for music appreciation or
absolutely not.
Nothing.
We had to read plenty enough in school. Like,
right.
No, thank you, I'm fine.
Chelsea, what about you? Not music books,
Yeah,
but
I've
obviously
definitely...
career focused books.
Oh, career focused. I mean, I've read a couple things on like animation and film, but I've definitely read other things that are not career focused that are, that are nonfiction, but definitely, yeah, fiction reading is like where most of my reading takes place, in that world of fiction.
Well, since you guys are both on the fiction boat, what are some of the like genres that you guys like to read?
Fantasy.
Just straight up fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantasy, sci-fi, a little bit of mystery. I can do some more like modern mystery, like real life mystery.
Yeah.
I need a good story. But even better if it pulls me into a new world.
Yes.
I need because when it's that, you're learning about stuff at the same time. Like,
do you like books that have like world building outside of our reality?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like how you like your video games. You know, like playing video games that are based in reality.
Yeah, it's all the same thing for me. Like, no matter what the medium is, they all kind of fill the same need for me.
Right.
So yeah, I'm easy to predict in that way.
Chelsea, what about you?
Yeah, no, I definitely like the fantastical elements. I like things with superpowers or creatures and things like that. But one thing specifically that I do like with books, I have to like the main character. And there are certain series where I've read and I'm just like, I hate this main character. Why am I wasting my time reading this series?
Like Harry Potter.
It's not worth it in the end. No. I mean, he was difficult at times, but no, that's not a series that comes to mind.
Right. You talk about Bella.
Yeah. You're like, I'm reading this book, and I'm like,
I threw that book across the room. I never finished that first book.
You're like, wow, I really relate to Bella and all of her trials and tribulations.
All of her sacrifice and pain.
Oh, I'm sick now, guys.
So Wade, you were talking about how you wanted a book that has a good story. Chelsea, I'm assuming you want a good character.
Oh, sorry.
How do you guys know that you're in for, like, when do you know when reading a book that you're latched onto the story or you're latched onto the character? Do you just read like the cover or that inside little slip, like the little summary, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm digging this? Or does it take like a third or read through, or when's your like cutoff point where you're like, nah, I'm not into this, I'm gonna duck out?
It's kind of hard to say. Like, sometimes the back of the book or like the little slip inside, sometimes that's enough to get me interested and go, oh, like, okay, I'd like to see like what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends. Like, I have never finished the Lord of the Rings books.
Yeah, because a lot of people are in that camp.
Yeah, because like you start the book and it's like immediately, let me tell you the briefest of histories of this hill. And then you're like 12 pages in, you're just like, I haven't even met any characters yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, The Hobbit was fine, but I just couldn't. I had this gigantic, stupid Lord of the Rings book, and it had all three of them in it. And
wow. So you're holding like a cinder block trying to read this.
Yeah, gosh.
There was one time in 7th grade, I hit my friend over the head with it in science class.
Gee, give him a concussion.
It didn't end well. But it wasn't like a full like swing. It was like I walked past and it was just like bop. But even that sound could be heard across the room.
Yeah.
For my science teacher, and she heard that, and I was like, oh, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to take that book away from you.
Yeah, that's like having an
And I was like, I was like, that's fine, but don't start reading it. You might keel over dead. So
That's like having an anvil fall on someone's head. Like,
kind
Jesus.
of.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Speaking of seventh grade, did you
hurricane.
guys ever go? Did you guys ever get excited for those Scholastic book fairs that they had in school?
Heck yes.
Every single year.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It was the best time. You get like you get
Yes.
some like some money from the parents, you know, like a 10 or 20. You just like run through there and buy just random just nonsense. Like I would leave with like a handful of books and like so many ridiculous pencil eraser tops of like different characters.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh no.
For sure.
I love book
I didn't buy
fairs.
nonsense there. I bought the books, but no, I definitely did have fun erasers and stuff. But no, I just went for the
Oh,
books.
God, you gotta
and
get-
planned out ahead of time which books I was gonna get.
You got to get the fun erasers. That was like the best thing about the book fair. It's like getting all these stupid
That's
eraser
like if
tops.
you have
They-
change left over.
They don't even work as erasers.
Oh god, they're
Like
awful.
they're just they're collectibles.
But you know they still do
Oh.
those book fairs. They still do
Yes.
them. They do
cool.
them like at our middle school. They do them during parent-teacher conference week.
Yeah.
And it's open during the day during school, but it's also open in the evening, like during conferences, so the families can come through. And I sit purposely right next to the thing while I'm doing my conferences. So
Yeah.
afterwards, I'm like, now go over and go buy your kid a book because they just had a really good conference.
Yeah, they set up like this little
yeah.
they're like
Nice.
book gypsies. You know, set up a bunch
book
of
gypsies. Oh yeah.
set up a bunch of tables. Here's some shelves. Here's some
No, it's
shelves.
it's amazing. Like they still do the little like mini magazine booklet thingies.
Yeah.
With all the previews and stuff. But whenever I get those in, like I'm like, oh my god, sixth graders come here. Like, let me give you your Scholastic book fair thing, and they're just like, I don't care.
They're like, what books?
Books?
I
What
love
are these?
those.
Man, those were like my favorite parts of elementary school. Though getting even just like we were really poor. So it wasn't until like fourth grade that I finally got to buy my first book from the bookstore.
Yeah.
And it was actually The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the first one I got to buy myself.
I remember buying.
That's exciting.
I remember
Crazy.
buying the novelization for the Phantom Menace. I actually bought a lot of Star Wars books at the book fair.
That doesn't shock me.
No.
But I remember getting the, I think it was the novelization for Jurassic Park 3. Like as a kid, I just wanted to get novelizations of movies I liked.
I mean, I'm sure everybody's done that at some point.
Yeah. I don't even remember reading them, but I just remember buying them. I was like, I've seen this movie, I should
never
read the
did buy
book.
those. I just always bought interesting books. I don't know. I would always look at like the, like the preview thing with my parents and my mom, and I would like go over them because my mom also liked to encourage us to read and everything. So we would just pick, books that sounded interesting and exciting, and sometimes she would read them too.
Yeah, it was
So,
like a catalog. It was like, something you'd get from like the scouts. You just go through, it has like a little description of what the book is, a price. You circle it, then you're running around this little gypsy setup trying to find it, pushing other kids out of the way.
running around. Yeah. Gotta get it first.
Yeah. Well, bringing it back a little bit, Chelsea, how do you know if you're like into a book or not? Like, how long does it take before you realize if you like the main character?
I think it's hard because I don't know, it really depends for me. There's some times where either it's just a series that sounds really interesting and might go places. I try to at least get through the first book. Just try to see where it goes. But I think most books I have finished, and there's very few that I haven't, but that doesn't mean that I don't hate the main character throughout the book or the series, but it's just more of like the story does also really pull me in. Like I do think story is very important. It's just to make it more enjoyable and make me want to read it more, the character has to be.
Yeah, I mean, with
interesting
books,
and
like,
likable to me.
story is kind of like the end all. Like, if this book has a bad story,
Yes.
there's really, unless the book has illustrations, there's really not anything worth reading it for. Have you guys ever finished
And
a
then-
book that you didn't like?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
plenty of them.
Yeah, I read all of the Twilight books.
Enough said.
The first one was the second one was just absolutely why.
Right.
The third and the fourth one got better.
Is there
until the ending?
Is there a reason why you felt compelled to like finish it, even though if you knew you weren't like fully enjoying it?
Well, I went out and bought the first three, like in one fell swoop. Because the fourth one was coming out like a month or something from that point.
Right.
And I think that was right. It was like a half a year or something before the first movie came out or something like that. And working at the theater, I was all hyped for it because I was a high schooler. But man, I mean, I finished the first book just fine. I think I had actually read it like beforehand even.
Yeah.
But that second one though, it was like 7/8 of that book is just completely unnecessary.
7/8.
Like, yeah, like because Edward is gone, like he's left, and it's just Bella sitting there waiting on Edward for like months and months, and she's just so terribly depressed, and that's all it is. Well, like Jacob's in it, and he's like trying to cheer her up, and you're learning more about like the werewolf thingy, but none of that's important. Who cares? It's just her sitting there moping for like 400 pages. That's the book I threw across the room.
It's like each new chapter is just starts and just says still waiting, and then like you flip the page and it's like the next chapter and it says still waiting. You just flip the page and it just keeps. There's like not even story. It's just like nope, still waiting. Keep flipping.
It basically it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the books that I hated reading that I did finish reading. So I don't know if you guys ever did this, but in high school I had summer reading to do. I had at least like 2 books every summer to read for my English classes.
Wait,
and we had to do homework on them
through the summer?
Yeah.
Where the hell did you go to school? Sounds awful.
I guess I was like in the highest like honor English classes, the honors classes. So
okay, settle down.
Oh my god.
Okay, so you guys didn't do that. Well, every summer I had to read at least 2 books that were required reading, and we had to write papers and fill out all types of like worksheets. I also had like math homework and stuff too for classes, whatever. But one of the books that we had to read, and so it was one I had to read because it was for school, that I absolutely hated, was Great Expectations.
That's fair. Absolutely fair.
Interesting.
It was a struggle to get through that book.
Yes.
Everything about that book was a problem. I think I reread the first 2 pages of that book, no joke, like 20 times in a row before realizing I was still on the first 2 pages.
Yeah. I had to read it in 9th grade, and I just despise. Like I don't dislike Charles Dickens, but I mean, in overall, I like the story of the book. Like when it's not in that book, you know, like it has an interesting story. Like when you like paraphrase it. But reading it, I was just like, "Oh, just shoot me."
Is it just the writing style, like the Victorian era sort of writing style, and the overabundance of like kind of describing things, kind of like Hawthorne?
It's everything.
It's just a lot.
I hated the main character. He was not likable. I did not care about him. I'm just like, I don't care. Sorry. Like, if you go die somewhere, too bad. Like, your story doesn't matter to me. Like, all the other characters are completely unlikable.
All of the characters, every single person in that entire story are bad people. Like, just god-awful people who are making choices to, like, consistently and absolutely torture each other because I don't even know, like classism or whatever.
It's not for me.
Like,
I could care less.
Should have died like 50 years before that book ever even started.
Gosh.
So for you guys in any media you consume, do you need your character to be somewhat of a reflection of your ideals?
No, not really. I just need them to not be a garbage.
I'm just curious if you've ever latched onto a character that is 100% the opposite of everything you hold true to yourself, or you like characters that remind you of things that you value.
I mean, I think I definitely more latch onto characters that, you know, do have similar values that I do, but there are definitely those characters that, you know, does things that I would never do or, you know, never think of or anything. But I think it just depends on how they're written and how they're portrayed. Like, if they're actually, like, well-rounded, very interesting, I can be okay with it.
Do you think a shitty person could be written well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, this is not a book that has that.
Sorry, this is like armchair psychology for me. I'm just
right.
I'm diving in.
Great
diving in on
expectations.
you guys.
The main character just like he's poor, but then he gets to go to like this fancy school or something because like
doesn't he have he has a benefactor?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, he has a benefactor who you don't find out who it is until like the end or something. Who doesn't even matter.
Right.
But like everything in his life that makes him absolutely miserable, it's because he is like in love with this girl.
Oh my gosh, she's awful.
Right, because Miss Havisham trains her to be like this ice cold bitch and ruin every man's life ever because like she was left at the altar or whatever like that. And so he goes through his whole life like being like, I love this lady even though she's absolutely awful to me and everybody else, but then like consciously questions, why do I even care about her? He's like, it doesn't matter. So he's not even looking out anywhere close to his best interest.
So
I'm just like, it's not worth it.
So, but
don't read it if you haven't read it.
I have not.
I had great expectations for that book. It's one of those books that I went into, you know, thinking I was going to like it, and then.
Did you think you were going to like it because it's regarded as a classic, or did you have other prior knowledge to it?
I mean, I had some prior knowledge to it, and then, you know, because, you know, it's a classic, well, you know, there must be some reason people like it. I guess I just don't agree with it.
I hope my sister's listening to this. I want to reach out to her. She's an English teacher, and she's very very fond of that era of literature. So I'm curious if what her take on the book is. Just to get
you can tell her I'm sorry.
Trust me, she teaches high schoolers
that it is.
I'm sure either A, haven't read it, or B, don't give a shit to. So I'm sure she hears it all the time. So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Curious how she feels about it.
I apologize, but I will not apologize for hating that book.
I've never read it. The only Dickens that I've read is A Christmas Carol. So in fact, I haven't not to go too off, but I don't really read fiction a whole lot. I read it I read it more when I was younger, but nothing that really a lot of it was for school. You know, you get assigned all these books that you have to read, To Kill a Mockingbird and Great Gatsby and the all that stuff, the standard affair. And then in my free time, I would read, you know, whatever. But basically, since college, I'll read. When I pick fiction, it's usually because it's being adapted into a film. So I'm like, well, I should probably read this because I'm just curious. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of just like it's kind of like studying before a test. That's how I kind of look at it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I just primarily like to read nonfiction these days. These past, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. So since you guys are big fiction buffs, I just want to focus on that for a little bit. I'm curious what you guys are into and why that you are into it. Is there a genre that you don't particularly care about or have, you know, delved into and didn't really enjoy? In regards to fiction,
romance.
You don't like those. You don't like those romance novels. Those erotic novels.
No, and I mean, I probably haven't. You know, I really haven't like
found the right
read them, but it's just, yeah.
Who's that?
No, it's just not. It's not my thing. I think the closest thing I could say to like romance, honestly, was Pride and Prejudice. Now, that was a book that I had to read for school, and I went into that book thinking I was going to absolutely hate it. And then after I read it, I was like, I actually enjoyed it. It was good. I appreciate that book. But I'm like, I'm not going to go out for any other just
who's the
books.
Who's the author that writes all those romance novels that get turned into like really bad films? You know what I'm talking about? Is it Nicholas Sparks?
Oh,
Isn't
you're
that the guy?
That's
yeah,
it.
Nicholas Sparks.
That keeps writing basically the same book over and over and just slightly changes the location. You don't like any of that stuff? The
Not
Notebook.
really. I've seen
the,
some of the movies, but I'm not going to read the books. No.
Yeah. Wade, what about you? Do you like? What about reading? Do you read any like horror or anything? I know you don't like horror video games. Do you like horror novels?
Not really, but I feel like it's just because I haven't found one that I like.
Right. Do you guys have a go-to?
I mean, like, if I read like it, I'm sure I'd probably like it.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Never know.
Do you guys have any go-to authors?
Okay, I have one.
Like maybe not you know, you don't have to have read everything, but you're like, oh, okay, I've read a lot of their stuff, or some of their stuff. I really like their writing style, or
yeah,
you know, something like that.
There is one actually. I have a fair few of his books, although I've only read like half of the ones that I actually own.
Right.
Because they take some time to get through, and they're kind of complicated. I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Murakami.
Okay.
He's a Japanese author,
yeah.
But he writes. It's always stuff that could like happen in the real world, but like there's a slight twist to it.
Right.
I read one is like 1,200 pages long. Is called It's 1984, but the 8 is replaced with a Q.
Okay.
And it follows these two characters, which is, I think it's pretty like common in his books, but they have these like separate things going on like the entire book.
Right.
But as you get closer and closer, like you realize that their lives are actually like very connected in some roundabout way until they finally meet and things kind of like dissolve.
Yeah.
But in this one, they somehow got transported to like this alternate Japan. It's like in 1984,
where 8s are
but
Qs.
it's not because where 8s are Qs. Yeah,
that's
but
the
it's
slight
like,
change.
There's like slight supernatural aspects there that they start to pick up on, that leads into a lot of dangerous situations. But it was really, really good. It took a long time to get through it though.
Yeah. Chelsea, what about you? Do you have any like authors that stand out to you that you want to, either that interest you and you want to read more of their stuff, or that you just, if they put out something, you're like, oh yeah, I want to check that out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to think about it, but I was like, no, one did come to mind. Amy Tan. One of her most famous books is The Joy Luck Club. And I haven't read all of her books, but I actually, even in college, wrote a whole entire like paper about her writing style and what she chooses, like the topics she chooses to write about. I just think it's very interesting, and it's something that I don't know much about. It's, you know, a lot of it speaks specifically about being Chinese American, and different like cultural aspects, and it's really interesting, and I think they're pretty enjoyable stories.
Awesome. Have you got, well, I'm trying to think here. So you guys both pretty much stay to, Chelsea, you said you really stay to like fantasy for the most part. Wade, you're kind of fantasy, sci-fi, mystery. Is there one out of those that you like wish you read more of over the other? Like for Wade, do you read more fantasy than anything else, but you wish you had more like a more sci-fi that interests you, or like a good mystery series that you could latch onto or anything like that?
Yeah, that's about sums it up actually.
Like how do you come across a series or a book that you like is there, like, if it's not being adapted to like a show or a film or something, what gravitates you to like a series? You know, how do you like?
It really just kind of depends. Like my teacher friends, like sometimes they'll be reading something and they'll bring it up. Like I'm close to the librarians in my schools.
Yeah.
And so they always tell me that, like, that Darker Shade of Magic, that's why I'm reading that series. It's because one of my friends loves that one, and I'm super enjoying that so far. So it just kind of, it's more of like a word of mouth thing.
Right.
For me at the moment, yeah.
Chelsea, what about you? Do you just like walk through the library and you're like, wow, the cover art looks awesome. I'm going to read this series. That's how I pick my wines, by the way. by the art.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've probably done that too. I've like kind of looked online to see, you know, some interesting series or something to see what they're about and see if they're interesting enough for me to read. And I've definitely, you know, like my mom and my dad as well, they read a lot. And so like my mom's recommended a couple books to me and then I've read those, or even my sisters and friends too. I do look at recommendations from them. I mean, and then I also, you know, do kind of research on my own after I get those recommendations to see if it's actually something that I would actually enjoy reading and not just somebody who thinks I might enjoy reading it. But I typically do take their advice and read that. And I don't know, I'm fairly flexible.
Yeah.
To an extent to where I get my recommendations from.
For both of you, is there anything that's contained within these genres or these stories that are immediately off-putting? Just like if you read the back of a sleeve and it had like this in it, like what would that be that would immediately turn you off and want to read that book? Do you guys have anything like that? Take your time.
Oh, I don't need it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Like if it's something...
self-centered male character.
If it takes place in the Midwest.
Takes place in the... What if it's a sci-fi series and it's like the cyberpunk Midwest with, you know, like neon tractors and...
That book jacket better have a really cool description on it.
I mean, this character better be more than just being the magical chosen white male. Like, I'm just tired of that. Like, I need something else. I need something a little different. Not that all male characters are bad.
You need the magical chosen female, is what you're saying.
Yeah. You know, female, whoever, you know, it's just something a little different.
A they, them, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, that's great too. It's just, yeah, I've just, you know, it's the same thing. It's just...
Not digging the hero's journey tale anymore.
I mean, I am. It's just the same guy. I mean, I could do a hero and it could be female or whoever. It's just...
It's always Chris Pratt. It's always Chris
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
There you go.
Yeah.
Don't worry. That guy's going to come... That guy's going to put a memoir out in, you know, the next couple years. You wait.
Oh, I'm not going to buy it.
I'll read it. I'll let you know how it is.
Oh, gosh. Get out of here. We'll see if you finish it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever finished a book if I wasn't enjoying it. It comes to a threshold with me, and if I feel like this isn't worthy of my time or I don't care what the conclusion is, I'll just put it away and be done with it. You know, like I can't think of a single book that I've read that I didn't walk away from it enjoying it. Like for me, books take a lot of time. It's a lot to commit yourself to, and damn well better be worth that time. So if I'm like if I'm powering through it, or if I feel like I'm forcing myself to read it, I'll just like come to terms that this isn't for me, and I'll just stop. You know, I don't care if I've already spent money on it. You know, I'm kind of the same way with movies. If I'm like halfway into a movie and I'm just like, all right, this is like Suicide Squad. I watched like 30 minutes of Suicide Squad, turned it off, and I was like, nope, this isn't for me. This isn't my film. And that's fine. So I don't.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I will always think that's unfortunate.
That's fine. I'm glad that there's an audience for that. It's definitely not me. I'm definitely not that audience. So, but yeah, I definitely don't. Yeah, looking at before we did this episode, I kind of went through my bookshelf and went through my Goodreads because I keep a Goodreads because I'm that person, and I don't think there's a single book on there that I'm just like, yeah, I didn't like that. Even for school, if there was a book for school that I had to read for class and I wasn't liking it, I just cliff notes that shit. Like I was that kid, I'm just like, nah.
I don't think I ever dared to do that.
Yeah.
Just
No.
in case.
Mm-mm.
Just in case.
Yeah, I would cliff notes it or
do that.
just, Google whatever. I'm just like, nah, I'm not finishing this. This is boring or uninteresting. So yeah, I was that guy. I'm not saying that's a good thing to do that, but that was me. So I just can't bring myself to finish stuff that doesn't entertain me or bring me value or enlighten me on something. So
That's fair.
but
Yeah.
I say we take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the stuff that we do like and our favorites. So
Yes.
so hang tight,
Sounds great.
and we'll be right back. It'll be a second for you listeners. All right, and we're back, and now we're going to talk about some of our favorite books or some of our favorite book series that we've read. And Wade, why don't you start us off? Do you have like a favorite? Do you have like a number one top favorite book or series of all time, or you just have like a list of like favorites?
It's more like a list of favorites because
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Let's see. In middle school, I started reading this series that I read them. Like my library had them all, so I read them in eighth grade, I think it was. But then when I got to college, actually, I went and started buying those books for myself because I wanted them. I wanted to read them. It's called the Bartimaeus Trilogy.
Bartimaeus
Trilogy, and it's amazing. It takes place in like a current but like alternate London,
Okay.
where magic rules. Like the government is based on magic. So like your power as a politician basically comes from your strength as a mage.
Yeah.
But like it's like business suits and everything. Like not like ancient spell, like wands and stuff like that. So how magic works in this world basically is that they can summon like demons, but like different forms, like imps and genie and all sorts of things like that. There's like a tier system.
Yeah.
And they bind them to their will, and then they make them do things, and it makes it look like they're being magical, but they're not really. It's like these other beings. Well, this boy, he's being trained up, and he learns like he wants to get revenge on this like adult who like basically has super embarrassed him in front of his master. So he like studies really hard, and he summons this higher level genie named Bartimaeus.
Named Robin Williams.
And he's like, I'm going to use you to basically get my revenge. And Bartimaeus is like, dude, like, you're like 4. You can't even tie your own shoes. And he's like, I'm 12. I'm a big kid. And he's like, I've lived for like 8,000 years, and you don't know what you're doing. And so like, there's tons of like banter back and forth.
Yeah.
Because they like freaking hate each other. But John, he ties Bartimaeus to his will, to make him go out and do. He has like this elaborate plot, but then he runs into like, that this adult actually has other plans to like murder basically the entirety of Parliament to take over London himself.
Makes sense.
And that's just the first book. He like stops him, and at the end of the first book, in the second and the third book, they just kind of keep like getting exponentially bigger on the magical scale. And it has a lot to do with like classism and stuff like that. Because if you're poor, there's no way you're going to be able to like learn about magic, so you're kind of at other people's
mercy.
Yeah. It's really good though. It's super nice.
Sounds interesting. I've never even heard of it, but
Yeah. I haven't heard of that either. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Chelsea?
A series?
Anything.
I'd say. Yeah, well, I'll say what my favorite series is. I kind of talked fondly about this series last episode. The Chronicles of Narnia is my favorite series of all time. I think they're definitely. I like a lot of other
even
series.
Even with what's her face? It's all slutting around in the last 3 books.
No, she's not in all the books. She's only
What's her
in
name?
like
Susan? Yeah,
3
Susan.
of them. Susan.
All slutty Susan over
Yeah.
there.
She's not. It's
No, continue.
no. I mean, it's a great series. It's interesting because there's also like different ways that people read the series. There's kind of like the debatable like chronological order and like the release order, and it's interesting. Like I've read them, I think, both ways, and it's a series that once you read it all through and then like kind of reflect on it and then read it again, things make a lot more sense, and it's interesting to see all the connections because each book is their own story and not all the characters appear in every book. And so it's like a lot of like all of it, takes place in Narnia. A lot of the story does. And like through like, I don't know, thousands of years. So it's kind of crazy that you get all these cool stories that make up a whole entire series, and it's just has a lot of adventure, has a lot of fun characters, and there's some interesting mythology, some, kind of Christianity in there involved, and it's, I don't know, it's just a really enjoyable series that I definitely just go back to every once in a while and just like read it all because it's an easy read, but there's definitely a lot that you can.
How many times would you say you've read
it?
You've read it all the way through? Like 12?
I don't know if it's 12, but it's definitely
once a year?
It's no, not once a year, especially not in the last couple of years. I haven't read it in a while, but I don't know. It's sometimes it's hard when you read those series again. It's hard to keep track of how many times you read it.
Oh yeah, I have that problem a lot.
Yeah. Being sarcastic. Anyway, but
Do you think
I've started reading the books in like 2nd or 3rd grade, so
Right.
it's definitely, yeah.
Do you think they'll ever make a good adaptation with the entire series? Would you want that?
No, I'm nervous. I'm nervous what Netflix is going to do with it. Because they have the rights to it. Yeah, it's...
Oh, okay.
Well, they'll do the first book
think,
and then they'll cancel it. So, if it's Netflix.
I think they specifically went out and I thought bought all the rights to it and everything. And I don't know what they're doing, and I think they might almost be creating stories within Narnia that aren't even based on the book, so I'm not sure what's going on with that.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with like them making movies about the series at all. Like I was excited for the movies when they came out, and they weren't as good as I hoped they were, but
I mean, The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe's a fine adventure film for kids. Like it's a competent film. I've never read the series, so I don't know how well it does as an adaptation, but it's a fine, it's a fine film, I guess.
Yeah, that one was better than the other ones. Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's cool to, it's a series that, because the first set of films they made, I don't know if that was the 80s or even before that they're like really old adaptations.
Oh, I bet those are amazing to go back to. Some 80s Narnia adaptations.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely either 80s, 70s. I don't know. Those are really old, and I've watched a couple of those. So it was very refreshing when the newer ones came out. So, right. I mean, I'm excited to see what they do in the future, and I hope they do actually adapt all the books or something. I'd like to see that. So I'm hopeful for that.
I didn't ask this earlier, but and since you guys both read fiction, do you prefer like one-off fiction stories, or do you tend to read more if it's a series?
Either for me. I do love to appreciate a good one-off, though.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with containing everything to one book.
Right.
Yes.
Or TV show. Or movie. Or game. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm good with whatever too. If it's good, I'll enjoy it and appreciate it. If it's serious one-off.
Yeah. Some people have a preference. I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any other, since you both did a series, do you guys have any one-offs that you would categorize as a favorite?
Yeah. Although it's kind of slightly, I guess, a slight romance, so it's kind of funny that it's probably one of my favorite books, and it's more of like a historical fiction. And it's called Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. And it's a very well written, it's a very heart-wrenching story. I definitely cried reading most of this book. It's basically about a Chinese American boy and a Japanese American girl, and it starts with like their childhood friendship, and then like how World War II affects their relationship with the Japanese American concentration camps, and the one character getting sent there, and then the other character just growing up with them apart, and like how that affects the relationship and the aftermath of the war and their experiences, and how it's just like they had this really strong friendship and this kind of like love, but they had to live their own separate lives, and how real life events in a way affect their livelihood.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
It is. But it's very well written.
I have one, and it's actually Chelsea's that made me think of it. I have it. I can't see my bookshelf from here. It's there, and I can't remember the name of it. It's right. It's just right there. It's called like the Princess, I think. And it's more of a historical book too. It takes place in World War II Japan. So right like in the decade after the war. And it's fictional, but it tells the story of basically of the Japanese empire as it transitioned into like a more modern democracy. But the girl, the main character, it starts, with her being a little girl, and then as she gets older, she ends up actually meeting the crown prince. And they kind of woo each other in and out for a couple years. Like they keep getting to meet each other, and then she finds out that he actually wants to marry her. And they're like, well, but if you marry him, you'll eventually become the Empress of Japan. But secondly, like your life as you exist, like will not exist anymore. Because you'll be enveloped into this whole new world basically, and you will not be allowed to leave it anymore. And her, being the first empress outside of like the empire, really transitioning into like the democracy, like she was the first like commoner. And it's really, really good. It's supposed to be reflective of the story of the actual crown prince and the wife that he chose and stuff like that. But it has like such a heartbreaking ending. But it's so good. I've read it. I've read it like 6 times. It's not terribly big.
Do you guys reread books a lot?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
It's a comfort thing.
Interesting. There's only 2 books I've ever read more than once.
What's that?
That's The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Because I read The Hobbit when I was very young, and then I read it again when they announced they were making it into a film.
Okay, fair enough.
And then sort of the same with Dune. I read Dune when I was like a teenager, and I was too dumb to fully understand it. And I read it again last year before the film came out. So, but otherwise, I've never reread anything. I plan on rereading Harry Potter because I read those as they came out. And doing our whole month of Harry Potter, I realized what a tenuous grasp I have on that series because I read it so long ago and only once. So I would like to do it again with fresh eyes, fresh adult eyes, and kind of see how it, how it holds up. So, but yeah, otherwise Also, I think it also kind of, since I read a lot of nonfiction, I don't really reread nonfiction. So,
Oh, yeah. It's not a good genre to reread, not really.
yeah, so.
Unless you're studying or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Usually I'll read a book. A lot of times I don't even like keep books. Especially with my nonfiction, I'll read it. And then if I know somebody that I think will like it, I'll give it to them. And it's kind of like a pass it along thing. But otherwise, yeah, I usually don't really reread stuff. So I hear you guys be like, oh yeah, I've read this book 11 times, and I'm just like, damn.
Like one of the reasons why I like to reread things is because my perception changes like over the years. Like I had just started rereading Harry Potter like a month before the pandemic started. And I was only on, like, the end of book 3, I think, whenever, like, we got shut down for, like, the big quarantine.
Right.
And I had the rest of the series read in, like, 2 weeks.
Right.
Because I had nothing else to do. But, like, it was... I caught a lot of, like, more subtle things.
Right.
Since the last time I read it, which was probably in college, maybe. So every time I reread something that it's been years and years and years, like... I see new things, or I feel different things, or I understand this character better.
That's how I mean. I have that relationship with film.
Yeah,
that's why I rewatch movies a lot, because from like a study standpoint, I'd like to break it down, and every time I watch it, I like see different things, and it's like that interests me.
Yeah.
Don't really.
It's. I like, rereading because, I like being brought back into that world and with those characters. And, I agree. It's, noticing different things and everything, or learning more about, the story and the characters. And it's also nice, too, rereading stories that you really love, again, after you haven't read them a couple of years. It's like reading the story, again, for the first time.
Have you ever...
It just makes it all more enjoyable.
Have you guys ever reread something and realized you didn't like it as much the second time?
Yes, absolutely. I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, but like, why did I like this? Oh awful. Yeah, I was 7.
Yeah. Yeah. That is yes.
Are you guys reading anything now? I know we've kind of talked about it here and there. I know, Wade, you don't really do a whole lot of reading during the school year, but do you have anything that you're planning to read as soon as like summer hits?
Well, like I have a small book pile that I have started. Like I've started each of them, but I haven't finished them.
Yeah.
So I'd love to finish those at some point. Other than that, and this is silly, this is not serious reading at all, but we for Christmas we bought like the gigantic collection of Kingdom Hearts novels. Like
there's
the
novels?
actual like
Nice.
yeah, there's novels, not just manga, but like actual books that are based off the games.
Yes.
And I'll have to show it to you all at some point. It's freaking like 70 pounds, and it's huge. It's all the books in one like gigantic book. It's like that thick.
Oh gosh.
Let me guess.
So
Is
stupid.
Is the cover just like solid black with just like key art for a keyblade? Is that what it is?
No, it's actually kind of
Okay.
cool. It's not that simple, but it's kind of cool. But I'd like to read that because it was kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But the writing is like, it's really small.
Got to get out your binoculars to read it.
It's gonna cover every little detail possible. Oh
I
my
might
gosh.
have to.
Oh my god, it's like 3 font.
It's like little baby Bible font. Yeah.
Oh
It's
God.
bad. It's so bad. But yeah, I mean, once I figure out my current list, like get that all taken care of, I'm sure I'll make a new one.
Right. Chelsea, what about you?
Yeah, no, I haven't started anything this year. It's definitely, I think the stuff I've talked about in prior episodes, definitely I have a good list of stuff to start. It's hard for me to figure out which book to read first.
Do you have anything that interests you more than, like, do you have like any like series on the backlog that you need to tackle, or any fiction that's exciting you?
Not too many series. I mean, we're still listening to the audiobooks of the Harry Potter series, and we're still
Right.
on the fourth one. So, that's a slow work in progress, but we typically like to listen to that when we're driving and traveling places.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just have a lot of, like standalone books, some fiction, some nonfiction. I just have to dive in soon. But it will happen this year. I just don't have I have lots of other stuff to do first.
Right.
Like play Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh. Give me the novelization of that.
Oh gosh. That would actually be a pretty good novel. Probably better than Blaine.
Honestly, probably yes. This is probably yes. Yeah, I also have a pretty substantial backlog of stuff that just keeps getting bigger because I keep buying books, even though I probably shouldn't because I have plenty to read. But right now I'm reading, well, I guess I have like 6 books going right now, all nonfiction, that I've been kind of bouncing around for a while now. I guess the only one that's not nonfiction is It, but like I've said in previous episodes, and you guys well know, I only read that in October. It's my tradition, so one of these Octobers I'll finish it. But yeah, right now I'm reading Hideo Kojima's book that just came out, or it came out a while. I think it came out in 2020 in Japanese, but it was just recently translated to English this year, so I picked that up. That's really good. It's essentially just him. It's like a collection of essays that he wrote throughout the years, kind of talking about all the stuff that he's kind of consumed in entertainment, from books and shows and music and movies and yada yada yada, that inspires his work and inspires his like creativity and him as a person, and it's pretty awesome. It's way more profound than I expected. I thought it was just gonna kind of be like, I watched this movie and I really liked this plot point, so I put it in the game. I thought it would be more like that, kind of behind the scenes stuff, but it's definitely more reflective and revelatory about him as a person, and how he kind of views himself. It's very interesting. I plan on finishing that pretty soon. I'm like halfway through. I'm also reading A Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, which, if you don't know, it's kind of the breakdown of the hero's journey, the literary device of the hero's journey, and he kind of breaks it down step by step using stories throughout different cultures, throughout different periods of time, through like mythology and et cetera, et cetera. It's a very dense book. It's very thorough, but it's very good. And it's interesting reading, like he'll pull excerpts from a story from like 600 BC, in the Mediterranean or some shit, and it's like, oh wow, that's literally the same plot device in this like thing I just read. It's just crazy how like like there's like a poem from like Celtic mythology that literally is just like this troll talking about horcruxes, like straight up fucking horcruxes. And I'm just like, oh wow, this is very interesting. So it's kind of fascinating reading this stuff and just seeing how connected storytelling is. And it kind of demystifies the idea of like originality and how we put way too much stock into it. So that's a very interesting book, but like I said, it's also pretty dense. I'm also reading The Gene, which is a very scientific and thorough kind of scientific study of the discovery of the human genome.
Oh,
and
interesting.
That's also another very pretty tedious book, but it's like very informative and very interesting to kind of see like how it came about and then why it's so important then and now and to our future. So, but that book's also like, you know, it feels like it's like 10,000 pages. So it's going to take me a while to get through that one, but I am enjoying it. But yeah, it's and then yeah, I have dozens of I read a lot of like books on film and the study of film and the study of directors and the study of like technical aspects. Just like I have a whole book that's literally just about composition that I'm reading, and then I'll have books on just like lighting or books on directing, and you know, I love that stuff. I didn't go to school for film, but that's kind of like if I had to have a passion, that's what it is. So I love reading a lot of nonfiction about that stuff, but I can't really say it's career oriented because I'm not a filmmaker. So I'm more of just a observer and, you know, someone who's interested in the craft. So I like to read a lot of stuff on that. So yeah, I have a pretty huge catalog of stuff that I kind of bounce around on, but
yeah,
it's all stuff that I enjoy for sure. But yeah, it's pretty much all nonfiction. I do have, you know, I am reading a fictional series that I just got the third book for. It's the Witcher series. I've been kind of casually reading it for a few years now. I think I started up because they announced that Netflix was doing the show. Like I've played the games. Like I played the first one on PC and I played the second one, and then I've played Witcher 3, but I've never finished it. So I'm familiar with the universe and the characters and yada yada, but the games are completely separate from the books. Like besides in name and character names, like the stories are not at all the same. But when they announced the TV series and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're just adapting the books," I was like, "Oh well, shit, I'll read the books then." So yeah, if I'm reading, that's like the only fictional series. I think there's like 5 books in the main like through plot, and then there's like 3 sort of like not elsewhere tales, but kind of like spin-offs, I guess. They still focus on Geralt, but they don't have anything to do with like the overarching plot. They're kind of just like one-offs, I guess.
Yeah, it's just like his little adventures.
Yeah. The Adventures of Geralt. You know, so I'm just reading the main series so far. When I finish, if I want to do the little one-offs, like, you know, I might. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's kind of... I plan on trying to finish, I don't know, half of this by the end of the year. Like, you know, I set a goal for myself in that New Year's resolution episode that I wanted to read 8 books. So, because I read 8 this past year. So
you can do it.
So
yeah.
I had the goal for 5 and I read 8. So I set the goal at 8. Maybe I'll read more. So who knows? But yeah. So yeah,
yes.
that's what that's kind of what I've got. You know, rolling in the deep right now. So
Nice pile going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty substantial pile, and it keeps getting bigger. I'm kind of circling around, pulling the trigger on Seth Rogen's kind of pseudo memoir that he put out called Yearbook. I really want to read that. So, and then I also got a book on the video game industry and another film book. So yeah, I keep expanding my backlog. So it'll keep me busy for a while. I do have a lot of stuff that I want to read, and most of it is fiction. That I have, it's kind of been just like set aside on like an arbitrary list somewhere. You know, like I've always wanted to read the Vampire Chronicles series from Anne Rice, which is, that's Interview with a Vampire and Vampire Lestat. I think there's like 8 of them or whatever. I've always wanted to read that. I have some Stephen King books set aside that I want to read, like Salem's Lot and The Stand. I would like to try and read The Dark Tower, but I've heard so much mixed stuff about that series. I don't know. Have you guys read that?
I haven't read it, but I've heard it like it as a whole is good.
Yeah, like I used to work for. I used to remember Chelsea. This is for you. Remember Steve at KFBS?
Yes.
Director Steve. He like loved The Dark Tower. That was his shit.
Really?
That was like his favorite series. Like, if you had to make a list of the things Steve loved in life, it was Sting and then The Dark Tower.
All right.
So,
it's pretty high praise then.
Pretty high praise. But then I'll hear from people, they're like, it's not very good. Or it's like bloated or this, that, and the other. But so I don't know. I really like Stephen King's writing, but I know that his writing can be a little long in the tooth, so to speak. So, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe eventually down the line.
Yeah. And I would like to reread the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because that was something I read when I was younger. I definitely probably skimmed some of it, because it's pretty tedious. So yeah, I'd kind of like to reread that with a different understanding of like reading comprehension. So yeah, I don't know. I got some stuff. I got some fictional stuff on I guess on a list somewhere. It's just if and when I ever pull the trigger on it. But yeah, I got a huge catalog of stuff that I'm actively reading, and that's already like in the line behind it. So yeah. Before we go here, do you guys have any? We've kind of danced around it a little bit. Do you guys have any books that you've read or series that you've read that haven't been adapted into any other like entertainment medium that you think should, or that you would like to see?
I've been waiting for years for somebody to do the Bartimaeus Trilogy.
Yeah. When you were talking about it, I was like, wow, that sounds like that'd be like a cool TV show.
It's not just a pipe dream, because like big companies have like bought the rights a couple times.
Yeah.
And I hear about it and I'm like, oh, so and so has it. It's gonna happen. No, hasn't happened yet. Like, it's because it's a fun thing, but it's kind of mature at the same time. It's not just like some whimsical, like track. It's like shit's going down, man. Like people are dying, and
I'm surprised that they didn't try and adapt it during that craze, in like the mid to late aughts when everybody was trying to find like that next YA novel or series to remember that when they were doing like I Am Number 4 and Divergent and Percy Jackson and they did everybody was trying to find like that Twilight or that Harry Potter. Remember that? Remember all those?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like people were just going like all these studios were just buying up whatever bullshit they could find. Like, oh, maybe this will be the next $1 billion hit. The next Hunger Games or whatever. So maybe one day, maybe they need to wait a little bit for the dust to settle before they do that.
Maybe.
Chelsea, you have anything?
Oh, I feel like this is such a dangerous question in a ways, because I don't. There's so many things that I did want to become movies and then did become movies, and then
you wish they didn't.
They didn't. Yeah.
You're like, oh wow.
And some of them were just kind of okay and like good in their own ways, but I don't really think there are very many books or series out there that I want to be films at this point. I kind of just like them to stay as books right now.
What about it's definitely a rare thing, I would say, but can you guys think of any books that you would want to see as a video game? Like, even if it's just, like, maybe not necessarily the same plot thread, but maybe, like, the universe.
Hogwarts Legacy.
Yep.
If it ever comes out, Hogwarts Legacy. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that game doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
It's tragic.
One can dream.
Yeah. They've been dreaming for
That's all I
years.
can do right now.
We may be hearing from it later.
I mean, not to
later.
not to
Vague term.
Yeah, not to dive down a rabbit hole, but yeah, there's like some like, you know, Twitter leaker whatever was like, oh yeah, I heard from inside sources that it's gonna be delayed, and then like the next day, like a Brazilian Warner Brothers account's like, no, it's coming out this year. And it's just like, why is the Brazilian Warner Brothers account saying this? Like, where the hell's the studio? So
Yeah.
I feel like that studio is like a front. There's like money laundering or something. There's not a game. Like, it's all fake.
Well, we saw stuff about the game. There's been stuff leaked for years.
They hired like an agency, like, hey, can you make a sizzle reel to like shut these nerds up for a little bit? Like, we got all this like Saudi money we got to get out of here real quick. So.
Oh my god.
Gosh, no. Don't hurt. Don't. No. I think their PR needs work, and I think we'll see something eventually from them.
I mean, yeah, I want that for you. So.
Yes, thank you. We'll just leave it with that.
Yeah, remember that series, Chelsea, that we were reading in tandem for a little bit, and then like we both kind of fell off, that X series? I always thought that would make a cool.
I read the whole thing. Thank you very much.
Oh, you actually did finish it? I thought you stopped after 4.
I read the whole thing. Oh no, I was constantly getting them from the library. Yeah, I read them all.
Yeah, I always thought that would make like a
series.
I always thought that'd make a cool like TV show, even if they just did like an animated series. You know? Mm-hmm. Like
probably for the best animation.
Yeah, like a 90s X-Men style, but just like with all these superheroes fighting zombies and shit. Wouldn't they cool? That'd be a cool series. I'd get down on that.
It would be a really good series, yeah.
Yeah. There's a huge cast of characters and an interesting like aesthetic to it. So I'm surprised. I'm honestly, I guess I'm kind of surprised they haven't done it, because it's like two of the biggest things right now in like pop culture, like fucking zombies and superheroes, and they're like in the same world. Like, it's like fan fiction. You know?
The greatest. Yeah. Who knows? Could come out in the next couple of years.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I guess I only, like I said, I only read shit that's already gonna be adapted, so I don't have anything I can't think of anything fiction-wise that, besides that X series, that hasn't already been made into something, so yeah, I don't know. So I guess with that, if you guys don't have anything else, we can be done with the books. Put the books
done with
aside.
the books for now.
Yeah, be done with the books for now, and get back to the important stuff.
Hey, books are great too. But yes, we'll get back to some other stuff, and we'll come back to books eventually.
Yeah, put down the words and pick up the controller.
Until then. So I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Thank you everyone for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to it, and feel free to write us a review, leave us 5 stars. That'd be great. Share this podcast with a friend who you think might like it. And, check out what we're doing on social media, or if you want to connect and chat there, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PodDemastered. You can also send us an email, too, at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. And thanks again for listening. We hope you tune in next week.